We are the anchors of Queer News Tonight, and this evening we discuss the queer headlines. HOTspots celebrates 40 years with a new issue featuring a 4th of July fireworks cruise and interviews with notable figures.
6 Broward school admins cleared of suspensions after controversy over transgender girls' participation in girls' sports, and it came from the very top.
Queer historian Eric Marcus revisits Stonewall, sparking debates over the historical accuracy of issues like the involvement of Marsha P. Johnson in the Stonewall Up and Stonewall Rising.
Vatica, or Alexander Millar, launches LA's inaugural Neural Night Festival, prioritizing neurodivergent inclusivity and featuring performances.
Ukrainian LGBTQ+ military members brave challenges to organize Kyiv Pride, advocating for rights amidst security concerns and police intervention. Putin, are you listening?
Good evening. Welcome to Queer News Tonight. I am not Faye What? And I am not John Hayden. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ+ daily evening television news, broadcasting live and available on demand on your favorite streaming service. It's time to queer up the news for Tuesday, June 18th, 2024. We are live and literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we are going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first and only unedited, live LGBTQ+ evening news show. Whatever happens unique in LGBTQ+ news, you'll see it and hear it.
HOTspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, is a nonprofit 501c3 media company in the same model of PBS and NPR, but designed for the LGBTQ+ community. Our mission is to support the 11 pillars of our LGBTQ+ community. We want to inform and educate the key issues of our queer culture, the Black community, Latino, lesbians and queer women, trans, student youth, seniors, HIV/AIDS and healthcare, business, social justice, and faith. Help us support our community.
We are part of one of the largest LGBTQ+ nonprofit media companies in America, HOTspots Magazine and Happening Out Television Network. In 2024, our magazine is celebrating 40 years of the LGBTQ+ experience, and our television news, talk, and entertainment shows support our mission to educate the LGBTQ+ community and broader community.
Let's meet tonight's anchors at Queer News Tonight. Let's welcome Matthew Wisnoski. He is a passionate and dedicated educator who seeks to transform the lives of high school students through critical thinking, dialogue, and building relationships. Welcome, Matthew, and tell me what's going on in your world.
Well, we are officially on summer break, although I am teaching summer school, enjoying some summer personal fitness for myself and my students, and looking forward to...
Are you training with your students?
I do a little bit, actually, so it's been fun to get back out there and enjoy.
I didn't think you could get more muscular than you were already.
Well, I'm working on it.
All right. You won't fit in the screen next time you're here.
That's the hope.
I'll have to make a wider frame for you. All right. Let's move on to our next guest, or not guest, you're an anchor. Let's welcome Reverend Skip Jennings. He is a podcaster, a featured teacher on the meditation app Insight Timer, and an author. Skip is owner of Mind, Body, Spirit Solutions and coaches clients using his CARES philosophy. Connection, action, remember, empowerment, self-love. Welcome, Reverend Jennings. And what's going on in your world?
Oh, I'm grateful to be here. This is very exciting. I feel like I'm on the Gay View, and I sit around a table.
I want to be Bihar.
I want to be Oprah. Well, is Oprah
Oprah's
not on the View?
that show.
Oh, okay. She
I
has
wanted to be
been.
Barbara Walters, but she's dead.
Whoopi,
So-
yes. Everyone asks me, am I a real minister? I am an ordained minister, openly out gay and proud and fabulous. And I do have an event coming up if someone wants to do yoga with me, because I'm a yoga instructor. On July 20th, we're having a yoga retreat here in Wilton Manors, and it's at the Cultural Center in Hagen Park. So if you want more information, just hit me up.
Literally?
Yeah, you can.
No, I don't want to hit you. Okay, next, let's welcome Alex Morash. Alex has written for The Advocate and served as editor-in-chief of Options magazine. He has also served as media director of the National LGBTQ Task Force and press secretary for the Florida Democratic Party. Welcome, Alex. The Democratic Party, you still the secretary?
No, I haven't worked for them in a few years. I'm not associated with anything they may have done that may have upset you or any other of the 20 million people in the state that used to tell me their opinion on it.
Yeah, I was not going to question your ability. I was just curious if you still...
Oh, no. But people tend to have a lot of opinions about both parties.
Really?
And
in this day and age?
I know.
You're kidding.
Politics.
Politics, no one even talks about it anymore.
Never heard of her.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Anything else happening in your world?
The only thing I would talk about is, Options magazine is it's actually a New England-based LGBTQ magazine that I was the editor of. And they just did their first print edition without me, and it's just so wonderful to see them doing it where I'm no longer editor, the new editor doing it. It's just so wonderful to see someone else do that, and sort of, because it's like your baby when you have a magazine at one point, So
Yeah.
Pass that torch and see it grow.
That's the only baby I
Exactly.
can birth.
There we go.
There we go.
Perfect segue. Let's welcome Glen Weinzimer. He owns Bona Italian Restaurant in Wilton Manors. Glen is the founder of the Smart Ride, which raised over $16 million for the HIV/AIDS community. He is passionate about getting out the LGBTQ plus vote in this critical election year. Glen, Bona Italian Restaurant is starting the Dine Before Dusk promotion that will run throughout the summer. So tell us, what's happening?
So I hate early bird special because that just sounds like old people dying in your restaurant. It smells it smells like walnuts. I mean, that's what I think old people smell like. So, and I'm close to that because I'm going to be 64. But we did a Dine Before Dusk, and it's a package. So you can choose, I believe it's the $24.95 package or the $19.95 package. And one of them is reintroducing subs earlier in the evening, and our chef's making homemade onion rings that are just killer delicious, like crazy good. And they get a fountain drink with that. And then if they want a full meal, we've got the bigger one for $24.95 per person. You get to share an appetizer. Each person chooses an entree, and orders have to be in by 6 p.m.
Wow.
That
Trying to keep the summer busy.
Good.
Yeah,
What's your favorite pasta?
My favorite pasta?
Yeah.
Rigatoni.
Oh.
And angel hair.
Okay.
Depends on what I'm eating.
Okay.
Rigatoni if I build my own, and then I do alla vodka sauce, peas, sun-dried tomatoes, and meatballs. I do that like once a week. And I also, one of my favorite non-pasta pastas
what?
is spaghetti squash.
Oh, yeah.
Love spaghetti squash.
The chef makes it, he
So
roasts
good.
it, so it kind of gets a little caramelized, and it still spiralizes like real pasta does, so it's healthier and keeps your carbs, supposedly. But, I eat everything else that's wrong, so my blood sugar is still too high. But that's a whole conversation with the endocrinologist that's about to happen in 3 weeks, and I'm expecting to get beaten to an inch of my life when he sees my numbers. But that's life. Okay, so enough about me. Let's move on. We are the reporters for Queer News Tonight, and this evening we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ plus community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast, and here are the bullet points of the queer news for Tuesday, June 18th, 2024. And then back to me. First this evening, let's queer up gay culture. HOTspots magazine's new issue is feature-exclusive interviews and July 4th fireworks cruise. HOTspots is celebrating 40 years with a new issue on stands Thursday. The magazine is part of HOTspots Happening Out, the largest nonprofit LGBTQ plus media group in America. The upcoming new issue features a special cover story on the second annual July 4th fireworks cruise. Is that guy going to be on it? Because he's really cute. It's the only LGBTQ fireworks cruise in Florida. The new issue also features an interview with renowned dental health practitioner Dr. Max Zaslavsky. If you are a Hollywood buff and a sucker for comedy, you must check out Deep Inside Hollywood by Romeo San Vicente. Talking about entertainment, the new issue has covered what you can expect on TV and in theaters this summer. In Summer's 2024's TV preview and Summer 2024 film preview by Leo M. Irving. You can find out what the Kravis Center for the Performing Arts has for you in Space Explorers, The Infinite, which is inspired by NASA missions. The center is also hosting Mamma Mia this June. Talented Victor Wallace plays Sam Carmichael in this 25th anniversary North American tour Scott Holland has landed an interview exclusive with Victor, and you are going to learn so much about this beloved ABBA musical. If that's not enough, another interesting interview in the magazine is Shane Gallagher with Johnny Donovan. You hear from Frank Dahl with On McCall, in which he talks about the recent launched summer collection and his debut as a singer. And of course, you can read popular features like Hot Eats by Maria Espinal and Out with Scott and What's Hot by Scott Holland. Grab your free copy of HOTspots magazine on June 20th, or you might miss all the fun. Wow, that was a lot. But the most interesting thing in this whole thing was the ABBA, because I have a good ABBA story. So years ago, I was in Manhattan and I went to see ABBA. And I thought, wow, this great show. But I don't really pay attention to the names of things that I've seen. So probably like 3 years later, somebody said, do you want to see ABBA? And I said, sure. What's it about? So the show starts and they get like 2 songs in and I'm like, I've seen this before.
Yeah.
Well, this is before like you could say he has dementia. But then came to the Broward Performing Arts Center, and someone said, do you want to see ABBA? And I was like, sure, I've never seen it before. And there I am sitting, and the curtain goes up, and I'm like, son of a gun, I did it again. So I've seen it 4 times, and I keep watching the movies because they're great. So I'm interested to see what the story is all about. But yeah, that's my deal.
Yeah.
Rev?
I have seen Mamma Mia 4 times myself. And every time
Did you remember you had seen it?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I remember it. But every time I see it, I always say, I don't have to see it again. It's like Wicked. You see it again, you go, I don't want to see it. I don't have to see it again. And someone says, I have tickets for Mamma Mia or Wicked. You go, yeah, I'm in. It's just one of those things.
The music's amazing.
It's wonderful.
As you can tell from my physique, I go to the gym not that very often. But when I do go, ABBA's the music I listen to.
ABBA.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see the Tony Awards?
No, I was working.
You're working. Tony Awards were so queer. It was the best Tony Awards in years. It was amazing. And they gave Billy Porter a Tony, and it was wonderful. It was just a wonderful experience.
Did he have a last name?
Billy Porter. Tony?
Oh, Tony.
Oh, man.
Anyway.
No, it's always fun to see what HOTspots is doing. I remember when I was brought on to run a magazine, the first edition I had to do was a 40th anniversary edition. It says so much about a magazine when it reaches that 40th anniversary point, and it's such an important time to reflect on all the different voices who contribute to a magazine over the years. And just looking at the content HOTspots is doing right now, you're seeing they're still thriving. They still have that huge history. Like, I can't even keep up with all the articles they're printing in this edition. Like, really kudos to HOTspots at this point.
Scott's been there for a long time, so kudos to him for remaining so active in the magazine and stuff. And yeah, there's lots to talk about there, and they've got lots of good articles for everyone to sort of catch up on.
Yeah, and it's great to see just such an important facet of the community, like stay, as you said, stay relevant, but also just stay connected and engaged. And people really are interested in what's next and what the next magazine's going to come out with, and the
cover.
And the cover,
of course,
the cover does not.
The cover is very important.
But question, is that AI or is that? I think that was the AI
I think it
cover.
is.
What do you
Cover?
The
Don't
cover was
destroy
AI.
my fantasy. No.
Well, you can still
He's
have
got to be
fantasy
in a
with AI,
bar.
right?
He's got to be into older white Jewish guys. Like, come on, look at him. Look at that.
That looks.
That is so AI.
It's
Well, maybe
AI loves you.
maybe Avi Ram painted him, and maybe he's not, because Avi's been painting people. Do you guys know who Avi is?
Yes.
And he's been painting like the black and white. I can't remember whatever the type it is, but
The body painting.
oh yeah, but
It's
but
amazing.
the ones he's doing where he's turning it into like gray and white, like a black and white image, unbelievable.
Next up, let's queer up South Florida and Florida. Broward school administrators cleared after transgender sports controversy. In a recent turn of events, 6 administrators in Broward schools, initially facing 3-day suspensions over transgender girls' participation in girls' sports, have been cleared of any wrongdoing, because they didn't do anything wrong. The reversal of their disciplinary action followed the appointment of a new superintendent, Howard Hepburn, who overturned the recommendation made by his predecessor, Peter Licata. The circumstances surrounding Superintendent Hepburn's decision to overturn Licata's recommendation remain shrouded in mystery. However, complaints from employee groups labeling the discipline as unjust and politically motivated played a significant role in prompting the reversal. Allegations of a cover-up by the district, as claimed by a lawyer representing some of the administrators, have been denied by the district spokesperson. The controversy originated when Licata launched an investigation in late November after receiving a tip regarding a transgender girl's participation in the girls' volleyball team at Monarch High in Coconut Creek. Subsequently, 4 Monarch employees were reassigned, sparking a broader investigation that encompassed Lions Creek Elementary. Despite the Florida High School Athletic Association's findings of a violation of state law and the imposition of fines and sanctions on Monarch, the district's own investigation yielded mixed results. While 1 administrator faced termination, the remaining 6 were exonerated, with Superintendent Hepburn aligning his decision with the recommendations of the Professional Standards Committee. The ordeal has sparked debates over accountability within the district, with employee representatives arguing that higher-ups were aware of the transgender students' participation in sports. Allegations of scapegoating and political maneuvering have further fueled tensions, prompting calls for greater transparency and accountability within Broward schools. Now, before we even get into this discussion, I always have a ground rule when I talk about trans sports, because I've written about it before. And when you deal with this issue, the far right wants us to talk about trans sports, to not talk about trans murders. So before we even get into this, the far right they do this very strategically. There's a group called the Alliance Defending Freedom. They are one of the groups that is constantly targeting children as young as 6 or 7 in kindergarten and claiming that they shouldn't be in sports or in bathrooms or whatever. And they do this because they don't want us to talk about all the actual problems queer and trans people specifically deal with. And it's a distraction because we all want to talk about fairness. So you're instantly driven into the conversation thinking you talk about fairness. Like, no. We want to talk about fairness in sports. We talk about, like, should like a 10-foot guy and like a 4-foot guy like wrestle? That's fairness. This is just such one of those really just disturbing stories, like to just a tip about a trans student. Like, she's a girl just trying to play sports. It shouldn't be a controversy. Yeah. So.
Well, and Alex, I would agree that they try to change or redirect the conversation, because the bathrooms is probably very similar to that. It's not about the kids being murdered or beaten up or all the other challenges they have, especially in this state, as far as being able to get gender affirming care and that kind of thing. But we're focused on whether trans can use the men's women or ladies' room or the men's room, and it kind of throws everybody off the real conversation. So good point.
Now, Matt, you're a school teacher, aren't you?
So I do work in not for Broward County Public Schools, but I do work in Broward County. So it is always interesting to hear school-related stories, especially some that deal with disciplinary measures. I mean, having been a coach in previous schools, the FSHAA is very serious about what it does in terms of maintaining integrity and following rules. So knowing that they obviously led their own investigation and, let the associated fines happen. And so, but, there's been a lot of sort of turmoil within the Broward County Superintendent's office. So this new appointment, hopefully brings some positive news in the midst of all of this, which I think was my key takeaway here. Is that this new superintendent really is trying to push the conversation forward without pushing a conversation forward, and really being tactful about trying to obviously address the wrongs that were done by whoever did them wrong, but also acknowledging that there's a larger conversation that needs to happen, especially with the reality of our student body and the reality of our schools, and trying to create a sense of, equity and as you said so well, fairness, right? And like, how do we move forward? Because how do you fire one but then exonerate 6? So we got to figure out what's really going on here out of this anonymous tip that then created something clearly much larger.
And thank you, Alex, for bringing up the fact that the number one people that are being killed in this country is Black trans people. And if we don't really talk about the real issue here, we're missing an opportunity to really make a difference. So this conversation has actually gone from middle school all the way up to the Olympics. I write for a column called Grits and Glitter for Out SFL, along with Terry Dyer, and we did a whole month on Leah Thomas, who was actually, not allowed to participate on the women's Olympic team. And allegedly, there were members of the women Olympic team, the U.S. Olympic team, was willing to boycott and walk away from the Olympics. So what are they afraid of? And, it was brought up to the Olympic Committee. Why aren't we creating an open category for trans people to perform and to be in sports? So I think that this is the bigger conversation that we need to continue to have.
Definitely. I think something that people don't even realize on how many trans people of color are killed.
Right.
HRC from 2013 to about 2022, they documented about 240 trans deaths.
Mm-hmm.
2/3 of them were black women, just so that we have an understanding of just how serious that is.
And on that note, let's queer up gay culture. What if Marsha P. Johnson wasn't at the Stonewall riots? As the 55th anniversary of the Stonewall uprising approaches, the event's legacy is under scrutiny amidst discussions of historical accuracy and symbolic significance. Queer historian Eric Marcus is revisiting the uprising through the 5th season of his podcast, Making Gay History, featuring interviews with those who experienced it firsthand. In a recent email exchange with LGBTQ Nation's Daniel Villarreal, Marcus addressed the ongoing relevance of Stonewall in the face of attempts to marginalize LGBTQ+ narratives. Villarreal raised questions about conflicting accounts of the riots, including the portrayal of Marsha P. Johnson's involvement, prompting a debate over the importance of factual accuracy versus symbolic resonance. He questioned whether the truth of these details holds significance compared to the symbolic power of various retellings. Queer historian Eric Marcus replied, emphasizing the symbolic significance of Stonewall, highlighting its power to inspire. Whether Marsha P. Johnson was at the Stonewall riots or not is hence an important question, but its answer is not going to change the value of what Stonewall means to us. However, Marcus also underscored the importance of factual accuracy while acknowledging the inadvertent perpetuation of myths within historical narratives. History often crafts the story through a time. Historians debate if that is what may have occurred on June 28th, 1969. I mean, again, it's 55 years. I mean, that's not a long time ago. And it's great that we're now able to kind of revisit in this kind of resource month of a lot of narratives of going back to people that were actually there and are able to share their stories and highlight their experience. I mean, I was just watching the latest season of We're Here on HBO Max, and one of the cities they went to was Selma, Alabama. And it was really powerful to see them talk to women that were there at 13 years old, not really understanding why they were there, but understanding that they needed to be there and hearing them now and just seeing how that and their city and their home has become this sort of, striking point for so much conversation around civil rights and equity and justice, especially in the world that we live now, where that's kind of come back under fire in a very strange way. And I think, Villarreal is doing a really great job, and Marcus as well, is recognizing that, yeah, there's an importance of telling the story, but there's also an importance of inspiring other people, and how do you find that balance, which is really, really important. Right.
So my family's from Selma, Alabama, and the march on, March to Montgomery is a very big part of our family. But my bigger question is the accuracy of history, period.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, you can go back into civil rights and you can say, did Martin Luther King actually show up at this march, or what has happened? It's part of, I believe, the dichotomy that happens with history that's being told verbally and passed down. But my big thing about this, my big takeaway about this, Marsha is huge to me. She's my shero. And I don't care what you're going to dig up on her, she's still a hero. So does it take away from what she stands for?
Right.
And for me, it's not, and we're going to continue to move forward so we can make a difference on this planet. And if you want to bring it up, go ahead and bring it up, but I know what it means to our community, what it means to Black queer people.
Right. Well, think of the significance of the fact that Black women, Black trans, Black gay, Black lesbians, were even more marginalized in the gay community at this time. So we have a riot that started, regardless of whether Marsha was there or someone else was there. We have a representation of not just the white male in New York City for Stonewall, but that it was even back then a much more culturally diverse group that came out, and the fact that women took a role in this is significant. And whether Marsha was there or not is really irrelevant to the idea of what happened that day and where it moved us forward to the point that we've got, gay marriage and things like that we've got more rights in a lot of the states. Granted, we're under attack right now, and all that could change on this next election, but that we've got, there's something to talk about, and getting caught up in whether she was there at 5:04 or 5:07 is irrelevant. And we live in a world where there are so many people that talk about fake news, and their news is fake because you hear them say what they actually said, and they said, I never said that. Well, here, we're going to run the tape back. Here, it doesn't matter. The significance of the event itself speaks for itself.
Yeah. Is this author gay? Is he gay? The podcaster, is he gay?
I believe
good question.
I
so, but
hope
I'm not
so,
sure.
because, but
Let
why
me
are
check
we
with the
trying
studio.
to...
No, I'm not getting any message from...
I grew up on Cape Cod with one of the guys, the husband of the Democratic Town Committee, Dave Velasco, was actually a Stonewall riot vet. So I got to hear all about Stonewall as a young person. I read Martin Duberman's book, and prepping for this, I also started looking at other notes on what thing. And I knew before I got in that you can ask 5 different Stonewall vets what happened. You're going to get 25 different answers. It's a classic New York story of loud characters, a lot of commotion. It was a riot. Like, how many Americans have actually been to a real riot? It's very chaotic. So we're not sure what...
Never been to one of my Christmas parties.
So we don't really always know. I was surprised to hear Marsha P. Johnson, because most people don't dispute that she was there.
Right.
People have disputed what she did. She's said on the radio that she didn't throw the first brick. Others did allege that she climbed up the building and threw something on a police car. So, like, maybe that happened, maybe it didn't. Maybe she doesn't want people to know that.
Right.
But again, irrelevant.
But we also can't ask her because of the mystery surrounding her death in New York City.
Yeah,
Exactly.
No, that's true.
Huge.
So now there was also controversy of whether Sylvia Rivera was there or not, but she's also another huge, amazingly fun, loud personality. And when, it's whether or not she was there, she also contributed so much, founding star and everything that she's another one who we can't ask either of them anymore. No. She died in 2002.
Right. And, we're in the middle of the anniversary, and suddenly we're redirecting the conversation about whether somebody was there or not, as opposed to the impact of what that day meant and what it means to the Pride festivals throughout the entire month of June.
And it actually was 3 nights. Most people don't even realize there was 3 nights of riots. Like, we don't always... That is an important thing.
Hanukkah lasts 7.
Are you saying that next Stonewall we should do 7?
No. It's not a competition.
One of the things that really ticked me off is that it's a woman of color. And here we go again, trying to bring down something that is very dear to a marginalized community within a marginalized community.
Right.
And so why are we not building up our community as a whole, as one, instead of saying, okay, that didn't happen and this person wasn't here and this, screw that. Let's move forward together.
When it's like you were saying...
That's very important. Sorry, go ahead.
It's like you were saying earlier, she's your Shira, whether she was there or not, like, she's still an important person for you.
Right.
And especially in this new time period where we have so many young people that now are part of the LGBTQ plus community, them being able to understand why these significant people are lifted up and prioritized as these significant, like, heroic figures because of the stories that they tell and because of what they stood for and what they did and the impact they led. Right. I think that, again, that symbolic significance is so vital to this conversation. And she was a real person, and she was a part of the New York community. So that in of itself should speak
But these
volumes.
stories are, we're going to move on, but these stories are really important because it talks about history. Yeah. And again, like, we keep seeing history rewritten. Blacks should be thankful because we gave them a skill set. So when we released them as slaves, they were like, get out there and do something.
There was some really positive things happened in slavery.
Right, yeah. So, like, there's so much crazy with it, and then we're in a state that's trying to, like, basically eliminate Black history in the books. So, like, us telling these stories and sharing them and people reading about history, it's so important because we don't know what's going to happen next year after the election, and we don't know what they're going to do. It was frightening in the 30s when Hitler came to power, and no one said, "Oh, they'll never erase all those books," and they burned them all. So, holding on to this and telling the stories, whether it's telephone and it's slightly changed, the significance of what happened remains the same. Okay. Next, let's queer up gay culture. Alexander Millar brings groundbreaking festival for neurodivergent and disabled communities. Queer News Tonight has been centric to the needs of our queer disabled communities. We were happy to learn Alexander Millar, also known as Vatica, is spearheading Los Angeles' first ever mini festival tailored to the needs of the neurodivergent and disabled communities. Named Neuronight, the event will take place on Friday, July 26th at the Innovative Media Pollution Warehouse Space. As a queer non-binary neurodivergent individual with lifelong OCD Alex Millar's personal experiences inspired this initiative. Neuronight aims to prioritize and celebrate neurodivergent individuals, both on and off stage. The festival will showcase artistic works by those often underrepresented in mainstream events due to lack of access and opportunity. Additionally, it seeks to create a live show environment that centers on the comfort and needs of the neurodivergent community. The festival features performances by Vatica, Alicia Cherie, and Frankie Simone. With merchants and food vendors present, the Neuronight team has designed the space with COVID safety, overstimulation, and community care in mind. A live stream will be available for those unable to attend in person. Supported by the California Arts Council and administered by the community partners, Neuronight represents a radical reimagining of conventional concerts, advocating for inclusion, celebration, and community engagement. I think this is pretty groundbreaking. To take again, we're talking about marginalized communities inside marginalized communities, and an individual standing up and saying, I'm going to make a difference. I'm going to make people feel included and that they have a voice, and do it in a respectful way, that with the overstimulation, like knowing who your audience is and making it so that they can attend and be comfortable and not have a negative reaction because it sets off some of the issues that they face personally. So,
As someone who was diagnosed with ADHD and has dealt with doctors and all of it, it was really nice to read about this story. Like, both me and my significant other, Lovey, I'm not going to name you because I don't even want to be out on this. He's on the autism spectrum. So, like, the two of us, like, understanding, like, the overstimulation and taking, like, it was just really nice to hear. And then I heard of the LA. I was like, should be in South Florida. Come on. Like, we'd love that down here.
Well, where LA goes, everyone follows. So what is very important about this for me, my takeaway is that I experience severe dyslexia. And to have a space where I can feel comfortable and not worrying about, am I reading the sign right or whatever you experience, I think everyone needs to be included. And we began this journey a long time ago when we started to have sign language at our events. And I believe this is the natural progression of where we need to go, that everyone's welcome to this table. Everyone's welcome. So I'm really all for this. Let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think into that too, it's just drawing greater attention and awareness to a much larger community than most people realize, because a lot of these things are invisible disabilities, because they're not things that you're going to see, and also encompass more than just mental, but also, social emotional disturbances as well, or challenges, I should say, not disturbances, but, and just recognizing that these people also desire community.
Matthew, because you work in the school system.
You're a teacher, yeah.
So you're a teacher and educator of youth. Like, what has your experience been, and how has it been addressed? And what have you seen?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. There's been a lot of larger conversations around students with exceptionalities, which is, how we look at it in an education system, which would include, both social, neurological, or physical challenges or differences that students face. And it's always funny because I see my colleagues on both sides are like, oh, that's not a big, and I'm like, and we recently had a couple PDs, professional developments, about this, where we had to read what it was like for someone with dyslexia.
Right.
And like what it looks like. And I happen to be sitting next to someone who teaches English. She's like, yeah, this is what I had to overcome as someone with dyslexia. And I was like, I think for me, one of the most important things that I took away from my formation in teaching was to create the least restrictive learning environment for my students. Wow. And so just really reminding myself, especially as someone with the visual impairment, like things that I can't read, I always try to prioritize. Like, if I can read it, then that means someone that can't see it as well can read it as well. And just really being attentive and mindful of those smaller things, making sure that the volume isn't too loud, or making sure that there's enough contrast with something, or putting on subtitles for students.
How do you address the other, say there's 20 kids in the class and there's one person has that, well, for lack of a better term, I'm misspeaking, special needs. How do you, where do you go with that so that the others becomes become sensitized to human behavior and other people that are different than themselves, whether they're LGBTQ, whether they're a person of color, whether they're, any minority-based group. Like, what have you seen for that? And like, has there been one where there was such an impact that you were like, I'm so glad I did this because look, these kids are walking out of my room better educated and more sensitive to the world around us?
Yeah, I mean, a big part of that, like in my little intro, is I really just have a lot of conversations, and I ask my students tons of questions, and one of the things I always ask is like, especially in the beginning and as well as the end, it's like, what do I need to do to teach you better? And that often gives them a segue to talk about, well, I have dyslexia, or I have attention deficit disorder, or I struggle with procrastination, or whatever. I love it when you give us notes on paper or provide things in advance. And it just, it's that sort of running Rolodex for me of like, okay, I need to make sure that I always start from a place of what is going to allow the most amount of people to be successful in my classroom. And I also really try to create as many low stakes experiences and try to minimize stress as much as possible. So I over communicate a lot of my expectations in a variety of different ways. And I say that point blank. I said, I'm doing this so that you don't get stressed, because when you get stressed, then I get stressed, and then everyone's stressed, and we don't have time for that.
And the other thing too is we have to look at how do we do this and not make someone feel like they're marginalized when they're experiencing a learning indifference.
Right.
And so how do we bring them into the fold and make them feel like they are, they're special?
Right.
But yet they're not special.
Right.
They're part of the community.
Yeah.
And it's a bigger issue. Like if you take this, but then you also take kids that are coming to school hungry because they're from an economically, I don't know where your school is.
Under-resourced, yeah.
Under-resourced. And so like these kids can't focus because they're hungry.
They haven't eaten.
And that's a whole nother, but I almost put it in the same, even though I know it's not the same, but it's a barrier to better education,
right.
When you have those kinds of issues happening as well.
It is. And that's why one of the things that I've, especially over my 10 years, is just not sweating the small stuff. Like, if students, like, I need to go get something to eat. Okay, go get something to eat. Like, I need you to be here. I need you to learn, but not if you're hungry. Like, that doesn't help either one of us. So go eat, go get your drink of water, go to the bathroom. Like, and I see so many of my colleagues that are like, but no. And I'm like, what's our goal at the end of the day? To teach them something. So they need to be able to do that in a way that is least restrictive. So just let it happen. The 10, 15 seconds it's going to take, or a minute and a half it's going to take, give them a chance to collect themselves, and we'll move on. And honestly, it's not that big of a deal.
My friend, he's a queer licensed social worker, and he does a lot of counseling, deals with a lot of ADHD, and half the time I have to explain to teachers, like, just don't sweat the small stuff. You always, like, you have so few, like, situations when you do that. That's such an important point. Anything else, or shall we go?
Why don't we move on?
Alrighty. Next up, let's queer up the worldview. LGBTQ Ukrainian military members brave challenges to hold Kyiv Pride. In a remarkable display of resilience and courage, LGBTQ plus Ukrainian military service members organized their first Pride event in 3 years, directly in front of Kyiv's capital on Sunday. Despite facing numerous obstacles, including anti-LGBTQ protesters, rain, and security concerns, over 500 people attended the event. Kyiv Pride organizers navigated security challenges by limiting the event's publicity. Participants were informed last minute through word of mouth. This precautionary measure aimed to prevent clashes with counter-protesters, ensuring a safe environment for all attendees. Despite police intervention limiting the march's scope to a 100-meter route for 30 minutes, organizers deemed the event largely safe. They used the platform to advocate for 2 proposed laws: Draft Law number 5488, seeking anti-discrimination protections for LGBTQ plus Ukrainians, and Draft Law 9301, aiming to legalize same-sex civil partnerships in the country. Reflecting on the significance of the event, Kyiv Pride emphasized the importance of military support for LGBTQ plus rights in Ukraine. Despite challenges, the Pride March stands as a testament to the ongoing fight for equality and acceptance in the country. This is one of those stories that is sort of a beautiful story in some ways, because there's so much happening to Ukraine right now with everything that Russia's doing, trying to invade and conquer large swaths of the country. It's put a huge stress on everyone. That, of course, I know there's always a lot of issues when discussing Ukraine. There's been concerns about how they have a draft policy that only affects men, and this has had an issue with gay couples, with children especially, along with everyone's ability and rights to flee a conquering army. But still, it's really positive to see this sort of news.
Yeah. You know, I look at this and I think how fortunate we are in America that we can, I mean, they're in the middle of a war. And, you know, they're going through their own personal war for equality. And for us, I mean, we have our issues, but it's easy for us to gather together in a pride celebration. They're in the middle of a war. And what they had, 30 minutes?
Yeah.
30 minutes to and we have all day. And we complain about what's not happening here or what's wrong here. And I think of one word, courage. Courage to be in the middle of a war, and then we're going to stand up for our gay rights. It's
and the other
powerful.
word is resilience.
Oh, resilience,
You
yes.
know, and I find it ironic that they were worried about protesters. Like, there's enough going on in your country just to survive. You really want to come out and protest? Like, why don't you guys just focus, and I know they are, on Russia and what's happening instead of a small group within your country that's fighting just as hard as the rest of you because your number one goal is democracy and keeping your country. And yet there's counter-protests. I give them a lot of credit for even doing the Pride because with so much going on and so little resources available, you know, to be able to pull something like this off, whatever it looked like, is heartwarming, and you know, you kind of just want to give them a group hug for getting out there and having to be brave enough to speak their piece.
Yeah, I mean, having 500 people, I think is huge, especially in where that part of the world most people don't realize. You know, there's a lot of fear and stigma against LGBT individuals.
And you can't get on Amazon the day before and buy an outfit.
It's right. But
Rainbows
just
are sold out.
Exactly.
the reality that so many people in that part of Eastern Europe and in Eastern Europe in general, I mean, the struggles that they have to go through, like you said, that we just don't think about in the United States or in other parts of the Western world. So I think it's huge. I think it's a huge step forward, and I think especially in the midst of the ongoing war, like that ray of hope.
And that should give us the ability to really stand up and fight for our own rights when you see how hard they're trying to survive. Yeah. You know, and then we, like you were saying, you know, we had a 2.5 hour parade. You know, they had 30 minutes. Right. You know, it's great.
And the other thing too is there are some parts in Eastern Europe or in say Sudan and say in the places where people are being killed for being gay. I mean, literally standing up, and this is incredible. It should inspire us to do more as a global community to support our brothers and sisters who do not have the freedom to have freedom.
Right.
So next, we are proud of our special partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. Supporting that partnership, we are broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine Cathedral at the Happening Out television studios. We broadcast Sunshine Cathedral's Sunday International Service at 10:30 a.m.
We finished tonight's Queer News headlines with pardon me for a second, with a segment we call LGBTQ plus 1 minute news.
LGBTQ 1 minute news, let's queer up gay culture. Chemical incident disrupts Baltimore Pride celebration. Several people were injured after a possible chemical agent was dispersed into a large crowd at Baltimore Pride this week. The Baltimore Pride parade and block party were abruptly halted when the chemical was released and fireworks were set off, causing panic. Baltimore Police Department Detective Freddie Talbert confirmed the incident occurred around 8:37 p.m. near North Avenue and Charles Street during a performance by headliner Saucy Santana. An investigation is underway, but no evidence currently suggests a targeted attack on the Pride celebration. I mean, what? A chemical agent? What is going on? And in Baltimore, of all places.
Well, they should be known just for hairspray.
Exactly.
My hope is, do you remember when Wilton Pride, there was the incident with the truck and we all thought the worst, and thankfully it turned out to be nothing. I hope it was someone just accidentally setting off fireworks improperly.
And I hope it doesn't stop other people coming out or other, Pride events happening. We can't let fear stop us.
Alrighty, LGBTQ plus 1 minute news, let's queer up students and youth culture. Federal judge blocks Biden administration's LGBTQ plus student protection rules. A federal judge in Texas blocked rules from the Biden administration designed to prevent discrimination against LGBTQ plus students, especially transgendered individuals, in schools. The U.S. Department of Education's guidance, set to take effect on August 1st, aimed to clarify Title IX, the law against sex-based discrimination in education. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton argued the rules could jeopardize safety in the sex-designated spaces and could allow the federal government to withhold education funds from schools that don't recognize gender identity. Well, I guess I agree with the Attorney General in that I think the government should be taking federal funds away from schools that don't recognize gender identity. This shouldn't even be controversial.
Well, my first thought after hearing it was, so you agree? You think there's an issue with discrimination in schools?
Right. And it doesn't surprise me that it's coming out of Texas. The only other place it could have come out of was Florida. Exactly.
And my point is, we're here to protect our children. We're here to give them the freedom to grow up to be incredible older people. So I want to say, let's protect our kids.
Yeah, it's really quite simple.
LGBTQ plus 1 minute news. Let's queer up lesbian culture. Something I'm so familiar with. Kristen Stewart to star as lesbian astronaut Sally Ride in new series. Kristen Stewart is set to take on her first lead TV role in the limited series The Challenger, playing lesbian astronaut Sally Ride, the first American woman in space. The series is written by Maggie Cohn and based on the 2023 book, The New Guys by Meredith E. Beebe. Ride's groundbreaking career included 2 space flights on the Challenger and over 343 hours in space. I can't imagine spending 343 hours on one project.
Or getting ready for it.
No, exactly. But I actually am fascinated to read her book because I love everything that has to do with NASA. And I remember the first time they walked on the moon. Most of you were not born yet, but I think I was 7 at the time. And it was pretty momentous to see John Glenn and the whole everything that happened up and through that. So yeah.
I'm just grateful they picked Kristen Stewart, a lesbian, to play a lesbian. Normally they are picking straight women to play lesbians. So I think this is going to be one to watch. I love a miniseries. Give me a good miniseries.
All right, I'll just be the one that says it. Lesbians in Space. That just sounds like the greatest movie title. I will go watch Lesbians in Space every time. You know that if something goes wrong in that space station, they got it.
I can see a party at the house. Everyone wears schoolclothes. Lesbians in Space.
I mean, hey, there you go. And their space helmets. And with that, LGBTQ plus 1 minute news, let's queer up health. 988 Lifeline provides crucial support during Pride Month. June is Pride Month, celebrating the LGBTQ pluses, community's vibrancy and resilience. Recognizing the unique mental health challenges they face, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration has introduced the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. This initiative offers 24/7 access to specialized crisis counselors via text, call, or chat. LGBTQ plus youth can text PRIDE to 988, call 988, and select option 3, or use the chat feature at 988lifeline.org for inclusive, compassionate support. This mental health approach was specifically designed for LGBTQ plus youth. I mean, and especially being someone that works in school and dealing with a lot of adolescents, But I think one thing that, especially as adults, we fail to recognize is a lot of the narratives that they hear about do create a lot of fear and anxiety for them. And especially in the state that we live, but also just at large. So just knowing that there are accessible and inclusive, you know, going back to the neurodivergent thing, things that are relevant to them, you know, it's a chat feature, it's a text feature, it's a phone call, that they can now access for free.
And not have fear.
And in the safety of their own little bubbles, I think that's so, so important.
Because we have 211, we have other crisis lines, but if you're a young LGBTQ person, you may not want to pick up that phone because you don't know what the other person, what their intentions are.
Right.
You may have a fear that they're going to out you. There's so many reasons why a kid wouldn't pick up the phone for that. But with the word pride, they know, hopefully, that there's a safe person on the other side to speak to that can help them be in a better place. So I love this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it's so important when because so often young people are like, oh, should I? There's nothing wrong with needing this. If you never hesitate, it's completely okay. You're in no way invalid just because you might want to reach out to this. Like, we've all been there, you know, like, I know they'll look at me as like this old queen. By their standards, like 21. When I was that age, I thought 21
You are not
was
an
ancient.
old queen.
By certain people's standards in their space,
Right.
I can't.
And I'm
but like,
ancient history.
The great thing is that we're meeting our kids with the technology. This is the technology that they use. And I'm always amazed, and I have to catch myself working with, you know, kids in churches. They come with problems as well and issues as well. So how do we meet them and not give them the tools that we use, but meet them right where they are? This is powerful.
Okay, LGBTQ plus 1 minute news. Let's queer up the worldview. An exclusive gay pride cruise will set sail early next year, offering travelers the chance to plant the rainbow flag in Antarctica. I am so jealous. Organized by Australian travel agents American Express Expeditions and Planet Dwellers, the 9-day journey departs from Ushuaia, Argentina, and on February 6th. Antarctica celebrated its first Pride event in 2018 at McMurdo Station. I think this is awesome, personally, because I also want to go to Antarctica. It's on my bucket list. So I think that getting to do a trip like this for 9 days, you know, it's awesome. It's just, I don't have anything
I'm
else
on
with
the
that.
different spectrum from you, brother. I do.
You want to go to the Bahamas?
Sister girl, I do not want to go to any place that is icebergs everywhere. Although I have family from Alaska. I love Alaska, but Alaska in June. Give me Alaska in July.
I did Alaska in July, and it was still cold on certain days, but it was great. And I'm sorry for that.
Really?
For 2 weeks, 1 week in Antarctica, you could suck it up and have a great time and see stuff that you won't see anywhere else in the world. And I saw a special where they baked bread in the ground, that they have these heat, whatever it was, and it was amazing bread.
I saw that
I didn't
special
eat it,
too.
but it was delicious. It looked delicious.
It was interesting to see the story because of the YouTuber Answers with Joe, and he literally yesterday did an entire Antarctica video where apparently, to tie this into other stories we talked about, NASA trains people to learn about space in Antarctica. Yes. So go get those space lesbians to go on the cruise with you.
There we go.
Shut the front door. That's brilliant.
Lesbians
In Antarctica.
That's
You get a commission on every person that
got it.
calls and books it
love
and
it.
says, I was part of the NASA expedition.
There we go.
That is today's news for the LGBTQ plus community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ evening news show.
If our community is important to you, share this news with your friends and family. Are you, like most of America, part of our very large television audience watching this live LGBTQ plus news broadcast right now on Roku, Apple TV, Android TV, Amazon TV, and Amazon Fire TV, and of course on Facebook.
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ plus digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support. If our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world.
This is the only place in the world that tells these types of LGBTQ plus stories in motion and sound. That is the passion of HOTspots magazine, Happening Out Television Network, and Queer News Tonight. I'm your anchor, Glen Weinzimer, and on behalf of these LGBTQ plus reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Matthew Wisnoski, Reverend Skip Jennings, Alex Morash, we will see you daily at 8 p.m. to our LGBTQ plus world. We wish you
Good night.
Good night.